close in. Just gotta get, bruh. Okay. Hold on, I gotta grab something, bruh. Alright, we're back. So the false narrative arrives. Basically, the main concern here is the R&R on everything is complete trash right now, yet the markets are heading higher. So if you're trying to get a good position, like, what's the SPX doing? We'll look at that real quick. So SPX. S&P 500. S&P is a company, I never knew that, but right now we had to focus on we have to focus on basically with Bitcoin. No, we're not keeping track of Ethereum. This is, oh wow, another symmetrical triangle pattern. Great. Great. It means nothing right now. Yeah, Ethereum is cooked. It's not like it can't rebound, but the R&R is pretty bad. Because the idea was that we were supposed to hold support and continue. It hasn't even done that. And we're doing the same thing again. How much you want to bet we're going to just reject again at 4,900? Woody do Ethereum party. All right. Fuck Ethereum. Move on. Anyways, so we're going to take a look at the SPX. S&P 500 mini futures. CME. Key level of support coming in at the high. Where is that? We have a key level of support at 6695500. What's the all-time high on the ultimate high is 6929 decimal 25 cents, so 6,929 and 25 cents. So we have that. Six, 9, 5, 3, 75, not 25, I'm at 75. It is gone, but stupid. Sorry about that. Support coming in here at 6,528 with a box retracement zone. Box retracement zone with a range. So depending on if this is going to actually hold support or if it's going to break higher or break down, it's of no concern to me at this point. Like, you know, they already wiped everybody out. I'm going to pay attention, but my main focus is on Bitcoin. Is it going to hold here and continue higher, or is it going to hold here? Or is it going to hold here and get shut down? That's the real question. Because Bitcoin was supposed to hold. The fact that it didn't, and people are still talking about a path to 150K, it's not out of the question. But we're forming a fucking Head and Shoulders. I don't give a fuck if we don't break 108K. It's a Head and Shoulders pattern with a break to the downside. What's this Head and Shoulders? Yeah, neckline, Head and Shoulders on the 3-day time frame. It's big ass Head and Shoulders, and boom, Head and Shoulders pattern, and that target playing out. To the downside. Once we break the neckline, the target is $20,000. Break 69K and the target becomes $20,000. We might not get there, but that seems to be the long-term target. If we form that right shoulder and then we break down, that'll be a clean Head and Shoulders pattern to end the bull market with the top. The 108K zone would be the dead cat bounce high, similar to 2021 with 48K being the dead cat bounce high before rejection and break of the old all-time high, and then break of multiple supports to the downside. So that's what I'm looking at right now. If you don't believe that I'm writing this, I'm just gonna show you a glimpse without like ruining the angle. Yeah, that's this is my chart. Like, it's my chart. You see it's my chart. What else we got here? So let's check the 2-week 50 moving averages. Haven't been broken on the 2-week time frame. That's really all I'm worried about. 2-week SMA, 50 moving average break. We moved the 50 SMA back down to the 1-week time frame, and we've broken it. And on the EMAs, we've broken it. So the 1-week 50 SMA, the price is trapped between the 1-week 50 SMA failed support right here, and now resistance, because those zones, the 50-week moving averages, they're heading above the price. So if we rejected 108K at some point, that's the signal that I'm looking for. But a breakthrough of 108K and then to the all-time high, then the bull market would be deemed ongoing. But these wipeout events, essentially they're just gonna be a kind of event that it's pointless. It's pointless. Yeah. I mean, we don't do this to make money in the long run either, because they can still wipe everybody the fuck out. So I really wonder what's the point of this. Like, why? I mean, I actually do like, doing these charts for fun, but I'm not gonna pretend to you like they don't wipe everybody out along the way. Like, what the fuck is the point of this? They just sell off Bitcoin to the banks. The banks gas it the fuck up, and then Bitcoin is getting sabotaged. Nobody gives a fuck. This might be the only time for the next decade that this bitch is above 6 figures for this cycle. It just might be because they've given 10% of the supply to these ETF holders, and they can suppress the price. They can, and they will at some point. But when these markets go sideways for 10 years, that's really when we're going to see Bitcoin outperform the stock market, is when we get a 90s style event with the S&P 500 going into the next decade, from 2026 to at least the 2030s, 2035, something like that. So, that's the issue right now. 20-week EMA. Trapped. So I'm not going to put on any momentum indicators right now, but I'm not here to measure the momentum to the downside when I know the volume has to get priced in ahead of time. So the only thing that I think would be good here is to look for those key levels of liquidity. So we're going to head over to CryptoQuant. We're going to head over to CryptoQuant, and we're going to head over to Glassnode. So we have to find Bitcoin liquidations. So we got CoinGlass and Glassnode. Bitcoin liquidation prices, Binance perpetual swaps on the 30-day time frame. There's more liquidity to the upside than there is to the downside, and it diminishes pretty heavily into the 100K zone. So what I think is going to happen, they're going to sweep all the liquidity to the upside, and then maybe around the 100,000 to the 108K mark, maybe we see a rejection, because if that liquidity gets wiped out, that's all they're hunting. If there's no more liquidity above those levels, they don't benefit off driving the price higher. By they, I mean market makers. If you don't know what a market maker is, then, I guess you really don't need to be here to not burst your bubble. But if you're not going to keep up to date with the terminology, why are you investing? It beats me. And then, this also isn't financial advice. This is just news. This is not advice to get you to invest. You should take into account that 99% of traders lose money. So take that into account, and maybe you have a chance, but I can't confirm that or deny it because I'm not your financial advisor. You should seek financial advisor help if you don't know what you're doing. So like I was saying, I think that'd be it for today's video because I don't see too much going on. Like, yeah, the on-chain data would be nice, but I don't have the funds to pay for the Glassnode right now. And it costs like $700 a year. So I'm like, bruh, yeah, like, sure, bro. They wipe everybody out and then they pretend like they don't, and they only care about the whales in Bitcoin. Never let anybody tell you any different. People that make it off of like 0.1 or 0.235, they're going to be probably like in 2035. It's not going to be a situation where they're even going to be able to get back in, because as soon as they trigger that taxable event, if Bitcoin chooses not to drop, they're not getting back in for that price. I'm sorry. But most people don't understand that until they sell off that Bitcoin at the wrong time with literally no trading experience. And then they try to act like they were a trader when they're just a long-term investor, and that's just not how you want to play this. At least not to you directionally, but to me, myself. That's not how I would be playing it. We're going to check other alpha.
Bitcoin's performance has been absolutely abysmal in
We're watching here is the financial end of Bitcoin
2025. In fact, as of the time of this recording, it is down 31% from its all-time highs in just about 60 days. Not only that, but it is lower than it was at the beginning of this year, down about 7.5% year to date. This means that if you had owned basically anything else from the start of this year, including a treasury bond fund like TLT, you would have done better. Now, long-term Bitcoin holders are not new to volatility. They have endured many much larger drawdowns than the current one. But some of those long-term Bitcoin holders have already cashed out. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, a Satoshi era whale sold about $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin after holding for 15 years. This has left many people wondering what is causing the exodus, what is causing this massive sell-off, and is this potentially the death of Bitcoin? Now, you're going to hear stories spun up on both sides of the current sell-off. You're going to hear the permabulls say buy the dip no matter what because it's going to $1 million. And you're going to hear the doom and gloomers say I told you so, you should have sold everything, it's going to zero. But there are a couple of big things happening right now that once you see them, it makes you think, well, yeah, this current sell-off actually makes a lot of sense. And the first one, which I think is the elephant in the room, is MicroStrategy. You can view these numbers yourself at strategy.com. They're their common shares, symbol MSTR, and they also have a bunch of preferred shares they've issued that pay dividends to shareholders. Now, these dividends are not paid out like dividends of a real company. When you have a real company who is producing cash flow and profits, they're going to take some of those profits and pay them back to shareholders as a dividend. But MicroStrategy does not have cash flows. They do not have profits, which means every cent they pay out as a dividend does not come from profits. It comes from raising money from new investors. In other words, the only source of money that they have coming in order to pay out to investors is money from current or new investors. If this sounds like a Ponzi scheme, it's because it is very close. The main difference here is all of these preferreds can shut off their dividend payments. They're not required to continue to pay them out. And if push comes to shove, that would be the first switch to get flipped. Saylor would just stop paying the dividends. Unfortunately, that is not possible with the debt because not only have they raised more money by issuing all these preferreds, they've also raised money by borrowing. And the people who lend money don't just want those interest payments shut off, which is why Strategy's CEO recently said
so the question is if they can continue to pay dividends. And my answer to that is no. Because Michael Saylor is over leveraged. Because you're not going to tell me that you have this company that issues all these shares based around Bitcoin before it drops 75% or more. And you're going to tell me you're going to have liquidity for those dividends. No, you're not. Stop playing, Michael Saylor. You're not going to have money to pay these people back. They're basically buying shares of shit for no reason, and I really believe that this is going to tank the price. This is going to tank the price. So whenever MicroStrategy goes bankrupt, like Kevin said, that'll be the bottom on Bitcoin. I kind of agree.
Sell Bitcoin, and we would sell Bitcoin if we needed to fund our dividend payments below.
We would sell Bitcoin. So the indicator is that they're below 1x MNAV. So MicroStrategy MNAV. It's It's market value to net asset value. So we're gonna see what their MNAV is. Their MNAV is 0.133. So all it has to do is drop another over 20%, and then they're gonna have to sell the fuck off. Somebody's car just went off. Don't even know why, but their stuff is always going off. MSTR. Net asset. So they have $59 billion in their market cap. So Bitcoin has to remove about like $10 billion off of these guys. I'm gonna say a good $20 billion before these guys. Yeah, BTC balance 40 billion. So Bitcoin balance below, because for the premium to be negative, the company has to be worth less than the assets on the sheet. Right now, the company is worth less on paper and more on the asset side. $60 billion right now. $51 billion market cap. That was weird. I'm gonna say 69 bill market cap. 59 billion. So if the premium is to trade negative, the company has to be worth more than the Bitcoin they have. So let's say they have 40 billion on their sheets, 50 billion above, because for the premium to trade negative. So if Bitcoin is below or at 40 billion and MicroStrategy is above or at less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So that's a part of the alpha. I gotta see something else. Yeah, this is, so I'm on bitcointreasuries.net. I just bookmarked that. So Yeah, anyways. Yeah, that's about it. See you guys later.